On behalf of She's4Sports and the Jays Journal podcast, I'd like to welcome you to the first ever Women at Bat baseball event here at the Rogers Center. My name is Ari Shapiro. Some of you may recognize my voice from a little podcast that I do from time to time, or on radio across the country. My favorite pastime is talking about the Toronto Blue Jays. It's actually my second favorite pastime. My first favorite pastime is talking about the Blue Jays and the Maple Leafs together. But for me, the opportunity to be part of this is such an extraordinary experience, because it wasn't until about, I'd say, a year and a half ago that I had my first opportunity to meet Ainka Jess and become familiar with She's4Sports. As someone who does a lot of podcasting, I get to meet a lot of people in this business. I speak with a lot of different people who are from the industry, former players, present athletes, media types, and I can tell you not an awful lot of them are women. But after meeting Ainka, something happened. I don't know what it was, but I suddenly realized that maybe what my podcasts were missing was that wonderful social connection that men and women have together when it comes to enjoying something that's a true passion. And in meeting Ainka, I quickly learned that we had a lot in common. We both went to York University. We both took art degrees that didn't necessarily plan out as we had hoped. She was majoring in English, I was majoring in political science. We would have made a great law firm. But as such, we instead focused on our passion of connecting and communicating with people. And I'll tell you, no one does it better. Her passion for starting this organization 2 years ago resonates in everything that she does. And as I got to know her better, she had the courage to say, "I'd like to be on your show, Mr. Shapiro. I'd like to go on one of your round tables and talk with these men who think they know so much about the sport of baseball." And I was more than happy to include her, even though she was incredibly nervous and had second thoughts at the end. And 6 or 7 appearances later, I realized that all of my shows are better with her in it because of what she stands for, which is first and foremost about empowering women and giving them a voice that they so rightfully deserve in this sport that we all love. I think it's safe to say that there are a lot of people here in this room who truly adore baseball as a passion. And tonight, being part of this event and being able to usher in 4 panelists here who are so influential and inspirational when it comes to the sport of baseball, it truly is a privilege to have been a part of this. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce to you a woman who's now been involved with the CBC. She's worked with the city of Ottawa, Manulife. She's become a real bigwig, I keep telling her. I said, "How long is it before I might not be able to find any time in your busy schedule?" And she said, "That'll never happen. Because if there's one thing I've learned about this very special, wonderful woman, is that she treats everyone equally and is dedicated and focused to raising the important issues as they're associated with women in the sport." So please welcome me in putting your hands together for our moderator this evening, the founder of She's4Sports, Ainka Jess.
Those were really lovely, kind words, Ari. Thank you so much. I didn't know exactly that we were going to go back into university days. But no, that's a great reminder. Thank you all for coming today. I'm always amazed at the turnout. I'm amazed at the conversations on social media for something that I started 2 years ago, as Ari noted. That was really it's a passion project. I started She's4Sports in 2016. I had no big budget, no corporate backing behind me, but I started it because there were certain stories that weren't being told in the media. And when it came to women in sports, the dialogue wasn't there, as you guys know. So I said, with 10 years, plus with comms and media experience, a great network of people that I knew, what could I do about the situation? And I got a logo, and I pressed the button on Facebook. There I was. And looking back, it's been quite the journey. We've been able to tell the stories of women who work in hockey, women who work, as sports massage therapists. I bumped into a woman at a conference last week, and she said to me, "I need to talk to you because my colleague is designing a new line for women who play rugby." And those are the stories we want to tell. We want to tell the stories of athletes, women on the field, but also women in the front office. Women who I met a documentarist who went to Africa to shoot a documentary on girls in soccer, and she was telling me in Zanzibar, the girls that were in the school system there weren't allowed to play soccer. And fast forward 5 years later, she was able to work with the national soccer team there, and now the education minister, they changed their policy and women can play soccer now. So She's4Sports has a great responsibility. You know, we can fill those gaps where the stories aren't being told. We can show diverse women in sports and the work that they're doing and the contributions that they're making to sports. So thank you so much for being here and helping me to amplify the voices of these women. And today we're going to be talking to 4 talented women who work in baseball, who have a passion for baseball, who probably eat, sleep, and drink baseball. Yeah, is that true? And I can't wait for you guys to meet them. So I will first start off with Dana Bookman. She's like, don't get my name wrong. I'm like, I know. My name's hard too. So Dana Bookman is the founder of Canadian Girls Baseball, which includes Toronto Girls Baseball, Nova Scotia Girls Baseball, Manitoba Girls Baseball, and the Canadian Women's Baseball Association. She was named on the 2018 list of Canadian baseball's most influential and was nominated for the RBC Female Entrepreneur of the Year. Dana is also a co-founder of, did I mess it up this time? See, because you were sitting beside me and I felt the glare. Dana is also a co-founder of Girl Expo Canada, a one-day event for girls ages 5 to 12. All of Dana's organizations were created to empower girls through sports and encourage openness to new experiences. Next, I will call Alexis Brudnicki. Alexis is currently the Director of Baseball Information for the Great Lake Canadians. She joined the Elite Amateur Baseball program after 8 seasons with the Toronto Blue Jays as a statistician and scoreboard operator for the game day production crew. She also delved into writing about baseball, starting with Baseball America, and then with the Canadian Baseball Network, Prep Baseball Report, Fangraphs, Sportsnet, and others. For 4 off-seasons, she worked in the Australian Baseball League, and in 2014, she was the press officer for the women's national team with Baseball Canada, and then went to Japan with the team for the World Cup. In March 2016, she became a Society of American Baseball Research Award-winning journalist for a piece she wrote about being a woman in the Man's Game for the Hardball Times. She was also sponsored by the Blue Jays to attend the MLB's Scout School in Arizona. Next, I'll call Nikki Huffman. Nikki is the head athletic trainer for the Toronto Blue Jays and is the second woman to hold this position in any of the North America's top 4 sports leagues. She joined the organization in 2015 as a physical therapist and rehab coordinator. She also has a doctor of physical therapy and is certified athletic trainer and a board-certified sports clinic specialist. Nikki also has a doctorate of physical therapy from the University of St. Augustine for Health Sciences with a specialty focus in manual therapy, as well as a bachelor's degree in athletic training from Everett University, where she was a 2-sport athlete in basketball and lacrosse, as well as an academic All-American each year. She's originally from Hickory, North Carolina. Nikki was also called the best by Blue Jays pitcher Marcus Stroman as she worked with him to recover sooner than expected after he tore his ACL. Yes, that is true. And last but not least, April Whitzman. Former digital marketing manager for the Toronto Blue Jays and now leads Rover in their marketing partnership department, where she helps sports teams better connect with their fans through engaging mobile content. While she has a relentless passion for connecting organizations with their target audience on digital, she also loves connecting with like-minded individuals on social media, where she has built a personal network of over 25,000 contacts, including almost 20,000 followers just on Twitter. Prior to her time at the Blue Jays, April worked for the London Rippers baseball team and for the Major League Baseball in New York City, where she was one of the first women and the first Canadian in the MLB fan cave. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is your panel. You know, I had a lot of great conversations with all of you, and it's good to look at the funny moments and the early times of your career. And I know, April, we were talking about your early beginnings trying to get into baseball. Can you just take us back there?
Sure. So I grew up on the East Coast, and after 7.5 years of university, I told my parents that I was moving to London, Ontario, to work as an intern, unpaid intern, where I was going to gain a lot of great experience. I was a mascot. I was a smelly dog mascot, actually. And my best moment from that whole experience was a family came up to me and a mom passed me her 45, 50-pound child to raise and take a picture. And I was like, please do not drop this child. I did not drop the child. Long story short, the team was called the London Rippers for one, so that wasn't a good start. And two, didn't have a liquor license. So the team didn't even last the whole season. So the fact that I ended up still working in baseball is one of the biggest blessings of my life, but it didn't start off so well. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm no longer a smelly dog mascot, so thank you.
Nikki, take us back to when you realized that you wanted to get into baseball, but also you had a very clear vision for yourself that you wanted to be a physical trainer. Physical trainer.
First of all, you guys smell really good. You smell so different. Thank you for this escape. But baseball and athletic training both kind of started a little bit differently for me. So when I was a little kid, probably I think I was 6 years old, my grandma started working at the minor league stadium of the Hickory Crawdads, which was an A-ball affiliate of the White Sox at the time. And I thought that was the Atlanta Braves. Like, I thought this was so cool. And she actually worked there. She would help clean the stadium. So I didn't get to go to the games. I got to go afterwards and help her pick up the trash. And so I got to sit with my feet kind of hanging over the dugout, but I couldn't go in the dugout. And I didn't realize kind of how significant that was going to be until now, where I'm in the dugout every day. And it's actually kind of significant. So I actually wish she could be here to see that. But eventually I got to go to some of the games. But I remember so vividly the smell of the popcorn, the smell of the hot dogs, the smell of the grass, and I feel like I smell that every day when I'm out here. Maybe it's just the guys, but I smell that every day. And for athletic training, I was in high school and I watched a lot of sports with my dad. So I watched a lot of basketball, a lot of baseball, a lot of football, and there was a football game on, and an athletic trainer ran onto the field, and I was like, Dad, I want to do that. That's really cool. And he's like, yeah, okay, you practice in the morning, And then he kind of asked me, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, I really want to do that. And so from then on, I don't think a lot of people believed me. Actually, I know, especially the town that I came from, no one believed me except probably for my parents. But, I stuck with it, and a lot of years of school later, and here we are. Just, maybe I sit on top of the dugout and kick my feet sometimes, but most of the time I'm still sitting in there. So that's how we started.
And Alexis, I know you've worked in a lot of areas when it comes to baseball. Statistician, you were invited to attend a scouting training opportunity. In your view, what has changed since you've sort of entered the world of baseball to where we are now for women in sports or women in baseball?
Not enough has changed. I would say pretty close to nothing. It's been hard. It's been super hard. There's so many times I wanted to quit, and I found along the way I really had to create my own opportunities in baseball because there weren't opportunities for me, and there wasn't a lot of access. There wasn't anybody, especially in Canada, to look up to. The people we talk about are sometimes people who are not alive anymore. And to be honest, it's been super, super hard. I want to say lucky, but I worked really hard at the beginning, or I still do, but at the beginning, I got an opportunity with the Blue Jays. I went to, after my undergraduate degree, I think we all did a whole lot of school here, but I did a graduate program in sports journalism, and we had a lot of speakers coming in, and I met some people from the Blue Jays and actually got the job through someone with the Leafs, and I started working here while I was still in school. I would come on game days for night games at 3 o'clock. I would leave when the game was done. I would go back to school. I would keep doing. I was super lucky that I had some really great classmates and friends who would stay if we had to do group projects or anything like that, and they would work with me. But even then, when I came in here, I was the second female in the control room. I started working in the control room here, and the only other one was my boss, Marnie Starkman. She still works here. She's a VP of marketing now, and that it was awesome to have another woman, but also like that wasn't a baseball position, and I wanted to work in baseball. I just wanted to do baseball stuff. I wanted to be in baseball, and I really had to create opportunities. And then when the season ended, I had to do something else because it was just a seasonal position. I just came here on game days, and I did an internship for my school program at Baseball America. And when I went to Baseball America, I was not only the only female in the office working on the baseball side, but I was the only female they had ever had there and still have ever had there. To this day, they don't have anybody else. And then when I came back for another J season, and still no other women working in the control room or on the baseball side. And then I went to Australia for the first time, and I was the only woman working in the Australian Baseball League then. They added some people since then. They had actually an assistant general manager who was a woman my last year I was there. And not a lot of women hold that role in minor league baseball, so that was a pretty big deal. And Australia is a pretty sexist place, and it's super hard there too. And I mean, honestly, I think people only respected me because I could say, like, I work for the Blue Jays. Yeah. I had to have some kind of credibility, and it was super easy to lose it too. If I said one wrong thing, somebody just dropped whatever they were thinking about me, and I had to start over. And at scout school, we had 50 people, and me and my roommate were the only female people there, which is not uncommon at scout school. And I'm the only female who works for the Great Lake Canadians right now. So to me, I want to say nothing's changed. I wish more had changed. I wish there were more opportunities. The MLB diversity and inclusion pipeline tries. I can't say it tries its best. I think it could do better. I really think a lot of places could do better, and they definitely should, and it shouldn't be so hard. I mean, I've won awards as a writer, and I couldn't get a full-time writing job. I've won awards for baseball, and I couldn't get a job writing in baseball. I couldn't even get like a freelance opportunity sometimes. It's insane. But for me, like, the big eye-opener was I went with the women's national team who are playing right now at the Women's Baseball World Cup. I went to the Women's Baseball World Cup in Japan in 2014. We went to Miyazaki. I got to be their press officer. And to see how much they had struggled, and they were not getting paid to be there. I got paid $1,200 for the whole trip, which was like exciting for me. And it was for 3 weeks. But they gave me like a bag full of stuff with like Canada on it, and it was the leftover stuff, so like it was mostly like extra large and like extra small. And if they see this, I want them to know that I really appreciate it, though. It's like my favorite stuff. I've kept it even when I've not kept other stuff.
So I want to get to...
Yeah, sorry.
I love it.
My mom told April to stop me if I was rambling. And
No, you're not.
She's looking at
I want to get Dana. See, I said her name right now. I want to get Dana in on this conversation because, Alexis was saying it's challenging and not much has changed. But what we're seeing now is women looking at the situation saying, we're not waiting for someone to come and change it. We're just going to start our grassroots initiatives. So can you talk a little bit about the early days with Toronto Girls Baseball and like why you started it and why you're just like, I know the change is slow, but I'm going forward.
Sure. So I do not have a baseball background, a sports background, and anything to do with that background. But I do have a daughter who is here. Hi. So when she was 6, I also have a son who's a year older, and they both love baseball. That's what they do all the time. They go to the park, they play baseball. They are obsessed. She's played since she was 2, and when she was 6, I signed her up for the same league that I'd signed my son up for, and she Played baseball for the season, but in her age group, there were 400 kids and she was the only girl. So at the end of the season, she said, I think I'm not going to do baseball. And I said, that is not an option. So I said, well, just get 5 friends. I mean, I called everywhere. Like, before I said this, I looked everywhere for girls' baseball league. There was softball, but they didn't call me back. Like, I honestly, at the time, wasn't even, I was just thinking ball and bat. Like, let's just keep going. But I said, let's just get 5 friends, and we'll find a coach, and we'll get some uniforms, and we'll pick a name, and we'll go to the park. So I put it on my Facebook page, and I prayed for 5 friends. I'm like, there's got to be at least 5 girls who like baseball. So I got 5, and then I wanted 10 so we could have 2 really small infield teams, and then 42 girls showed up, and that was in 2016. And I really thought that I had created something amazing. I called people, I have 42 girls playing baseball, like I wanted 5, and I have 42. So fast forward 1 year later to spring 2017, and we had 350 girls playing. And that's in one tiny pocket of Toronto, a very small piece of the city, and that was just by word of mouth. So 1 year after that, so spring 2018, which just passed, just in Toronto alone, we had 475 girls playing baseball. We now have 5 locations in Toronto. We've expanded to Manitoba and Nova Scotia. We had almost 1,000 girls playing this spring, and it's not stopping. I get calls every day. I get calls from the States. I get calls from...
right there.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, it just follows me around. But I get calls from, I just talked to somebody in New England. I had a call today from somebody in Whitby, Peterborough, Thunder Bay. I had a wonderful conversation with a great woman from Ottawa who's here today. Hi, June. So that's where it is. And we don't only have girls who are playing baseball. I mean, this is about empowering them through sports, and baseball is an amazing sport for that. And I don't know what I was going to say, so I'm just going to stop now.
April, we're talking here about not seeing these women in specific roles in baseball, not their opportunities aren't there. Take us through fan engagement and social media. Are the leagues doing a good job with reaching out to women or including them in the sports conversation, and what more can they do? Ooh. I started off light for you, April. Yeah. Now it's...
I mean, it's tough. From the Blue Jays side of things, I know that when they segmented their fans, it wasn't female and male. There was many other circumstances that they were identifying their audience. But a lot of times when women are being catered to, and it's gotten a little better, but it's check out this pink jersey that honestly does not even fit me. But yeah, it's check out this sequin jersey, or this pink this, or this pink that, or the knowledge is dumbed down. The toughest thing about what I find is being a female fan is, you're saying, oh, I really like X player, and the response is, you just like him because he's cute. Or, I told you this when we spoke, but when I took over the Blue Jays social media accounts, I was running their Twitter, and my one goal was to make it two-way conversational. To men, to women, and I found that the most engaged fans on there were women. And my first day, I started engaging, started responding to fans, and all of a sudden, people were noticing. And I got 2 responses, 2 most common responses. 1, the Blue Jays hired a new intern, or 2, the Blue Jays hired a new Twitter guy. I was neither. Right. Getting paid closer to the first, but yes.
And Nikki, in your role, we read your bio, and the second female in your role across all the North American sports leagues. Tell us a little bit about being, kind of the face, right, and the first. There's definitely that. It's challenging. It's definitely that whole thing of responsibility.
Yeah. I think that's something that you don't set out for, but you accept, and I think that's really important for everyone that comes behind. And I talk about that a lot with young girls and their moms, and, you guys see me in the dugout a lot, and the thing about it is, like, us as women, we have routines that guys don't have, but every bad hair day that I have, everyone sees it. Every time I'm tired, they tell me I look tired, and then I get it, everyone sees that too. And so that part of it is, I think, really important for young women and women alike to kind of all take a step back and think about is we're in a society that seeks approval. Everything is about approval. It's Instagram, it's Twitter, it's likes, it's follows, it's retweets. And to get into this field and to stay in this field and be successful in what you want to do, you kind of have to de-identify with that a little bit. And you have to be very secure in what you do and not be looking for approval from other people to get going. And not be looking for approval from other people to keep going. And so a lot of that stuff, I think, being the face or, kind of setting out to do something isn't about setting out to be the best woman in that role. It's about setting out to be a really good athletic trainer or a really good physical therapist. And it's similar to, we play in the Orioles right now. We talked about this on the phone. Adam Jones didn't set out to be the best black center fielder at all. He's one of the best center fielders in the game. And that's how I think that, this role, I think, can be used to acknowledge diversity, but I don't think we should be defined by that diversity as professionals. I think that's something really, really important, especially as young women are coming up, is not to try to be the best woman at doing something, but be a woman that's really good at doing what you do.
Alexis, I'm going to turn to you.
Good luck.
I am going to turn to you.
Okay.
You touched on a lot about the challenges.
I'm bitter sometimes.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Talk about the challenges. That's fine, because we have talked about the good side of diversity and women in sports and the challenging side. So I want to return to the good side.
Okay.
What has been some of your best moments in baseball that you're proud of?
I'm definitely going with the women's national team to Japan was amazing. It was so much fun. It was a national team experience, which if anybody has ever read anything that I do, I love the national team more than anything. I cover the junior national team, the men's senior national team, the women's national team, and it's so special to see what they can accomplish because it is harder coming from Canada to play baseball and to get to that level and for Canadian guys who play in the big leagues like Russell Martin or John Axford and Dalton Pompey and the guys in this organization, it's harder. They don't come from a place where they get seen as much. They don't come from a place with as many opportunities. So for me, and the women don't get any opportunities. The program started in 2004, and when we went, it had been 10 years, and people still had no idea that they played baseball. People still don't know they play baseball. They're like, oh, you mean softball, right? We're like, no, like 108 stitches, little ball, you get it. You've seen it before. And they all had full-time jobs. Like, these women were so smart and so hardworking. They were all using their vacation to go to Japan. And they finished that year in 4th, and they, hated it. They finished out of a medal spot, and they were miserable. And I'm like, this is the best time of my life. And they're just like, okay, Alexis, just calm down. Or keep it to yourself. I'm like, this is amazing. and it was awesome. I was on the bench. I was in the dugout. I was with the team. And just the pride that they had for their country, for the game. You knew they were just there because they love the game. And there were some not so good circumstances too. We had a big earthquake. We had some other stuff happen. And everybody just wanted to be there and just wanted to play. And that was super, super amazing. And Scout School was also an amazing opportunity. Just going to throw that in there before I have to give this microphone away. And my roommate, she works for the Dodgers, Emily Fragapani. You'll hear her name in the future for sure. She works in research and development. And at the time, there were only 3 women in all of baseball in research and development. And 2 of them were with the Dodgers, and 1 was Emily. There's 5 women now. It's a big improvement in the last 2 years in research and development. And Emily was super amazing. I got there and lost all confidence all at once. And I was like, I don't know if I know anything anymore. I don't know if I belong here. My seat was in between 2 guys who play in the big leagues. I'm like, well, it must be nice for you guys to just know everything. And I had just, but by the end of it, the beginning, not so good. The end of it was great. Everybody kind of just helped understand that we all just brought a different perspective to baseball. We all were doing the same thing. We were all being evaluated on the same thing. Everybody, including the big leaguers, was worried about what we were putting on our scouting reports, that we were being evaluated on. They all wanted to, we were all in the same boat. And as far as I felt outside of that circle at the end, I felt totally a part of it, or sorry, as far as I felt at the beginning, I felt totally a part of it by the end. And Emily was super, super great, and it was so awesome to have someone that had had such a different experience in baseball than I had had, because she just hadn't faced a lot of the same obstacles, and I hope she never does. And she knows that, and like I love her for it, and she was super helpful to me. But by the end, we were all just like one big happy scouting family, and it was an awesome experience.
That's great. Danny?
Yes.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about, obviously girls in sports. There's a lot of research being done now looking at, different stats about, girls, as they reach puberty, they tend to drop out of sports. Or if they don't stick with sports, up until even the age of 10, if they drop out of it, there's a 10% chance that they'll be physically active as an adult. So how are you trying to deal with that in terms of, getting young girls engaged in baseball, and also, speaking to their parents, to encourage them to keep their girls in baseball?
So there are a ton of statistics that are really sad, and one of them is 41%, so almost half of girls between the ages of 3 and 17 do not play a sport. So, I look at my daughter who was ready to quit, and there is a better way. Studies have shown that girls like sports that there are all girls in, that all girls sports, they feel comfortable. It's a social experience. Sports are a social experience. Beyond elite athletes, we have those Canadian team players are our coaches. So we're showing girls that you can be what you see, that you can become an elite athlete. And if you don't want to be an elite athlete, you can just have a great role model, and you can have friends, and you can, build empathy and learn teamwork and learn all these things together with other girls who are interested in the same thing. Just because you like, sports doesn't mean you don't like ballet. My daughter, won her ballet award for her ballet class, but she also just won the Little League Girls World Championship. So she can have both those trophies on her shelf and be a great girl. The other thing I try to do a lot that we're building a bit more is, girls can be any part of this game. So we had the first all-female umpire clinic. We have all-female coaches. So we've created a mentorship program which we're introducing where our older girls can help coach our younger girls. We have a girl advisory board so they can feel that their voice is heard, and we empower girls through things that have to do with sports. For example, we had some of our kids come out and teach visually impaired people how to play baseball. So we're trying to make them not just into great ball players and have an interest in sport, but just really well-rounded future leaders, that they can learn these soft skills that they can carry with them that boys just naturally get. Boys go out and they play ball in the yard with their dad, and girls don't get that. Girls are encouraged to go play with dolls. But there's so many inherent biases, even from supportive parents, that we have so much to do in terms of awareness, and it's not just the statistics, because parents think they're doing the right thing, and engaging them and saying, I had a girl whose mother was saying to me, oh, my daughter asked if she could be a Blue Jay, and I said, ha, 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 no way. And I was like, why are you telling me this story? And my other favorite one was these two dads. We were really lucky. We were on CP24. We were getting ready for our early morning shoot. We had these two dads standing together. We had our national team players, who are our coaches, out tossing the ball around during commercial break. The dads were standing beside their daughters. They woke up at 5 a.m. to be there. They were supportive dads, and they said, they don't throw like girls. I was like, please, your daughter's right there. But it's not because they don't feel supportive. It's this unconscious bias, and there's so many hurdles, but I'm hoping that by telling girls they can do it and showing them that they can do it and that anything is possible, that, we're creating a space that they feel like they can.
Nikki, I'm going to get you in on this conversation. You know, when I spoke to you, you talked about relationships and how important relationships are to you as you, or were to you as you were kind of getting, navigating your career from leaving Duke to joining the Blue Jays. Talk about some of the mentors or some of the people that really helped you get to where you are today.
Yeah, I think relationships drive everything. And I think that's where a lot of people, when they ask, like, how did you get to do this or how did you get to do that? Anybody can do the school, right? Like, anybody can do their bachelor's degree and their doctorate, and they can go learn what's in books. If you want to, you can, right? It's torture, but you can. But you can learn what's in a book, and what's not in a book is how to deal with people and how to care about people. And so the main person that taught me that was my mom. And my relationship with my mom is great. She taught me from the time I was little. Like, we weren't allowed to use the word can't in our home. So if we said it, it was like a really bad 4-letter word, and we got in trouble. And so that carried me as I went because I used that. There was nothing that I believed that I couldn't do because she drilled that into me. But I always felt her love, you know? And I think that's something that we miss a little bit. We're so techie and, we interact a lot on the web, and that's great. But, we miss some of the personal relationship stuff. And I think, from mentors that I had in college, I had a professor that was great in athletic training. And he saw in me what I didn't see in myself. He pushed me so hard, and I was so mad because I'm playing 2 sports, I'm covering baseball, I'm covering football, you're pushing me so hard, what are you, why? And he pulled me in his office, he was like, look, you have so much potential, but it's gonna be very hard for you. I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be very hard for you, and a lot of people are gonna tell you no, and you just have to find that one person that's gonna tell you yes. And so he became one of my mentors along the way. Another person in physical therapy school became my mentor, taught me how to be a leader. But I think the full theme of all of that, whether it's mentors or family or even the players and the staff at the Blue Jays, is that it's always about relationships. You're going to get more out of people and more out of programs and more out of life if you have relationships with those people. And so whether it's a rehab or something like this or anything that I'm trying to accomplish, it always starts with trying to figure out what makes this person tick, who are they, and how are we going to interact with each other. And so that relationships are really, really, really important to me, and I think the theme of my whole career.
April, when we look at the relationships engagement on social media, talk a little bit about what you're doing with Rover and Rover IO and sports brands to build on that engagement and build those relationships through social when it comes to sports and engaging other audiences.
Cool, yeah, no. So I'll try to dumb this down, but what Rover does is essentially help sports. My parents have no idea what I do, so I'm very much used to starting that sentence that way. But essentially, what Rover does is help sports teams with their mobile marketing. So if you have an app, typically it takes a lot of time to code that content for an app, but with our product, we're able to create it and launch it in a matter of minutes. So what's cool about that is that for me, the digital landscape I used to only think was social. And through Rover, I'm seeing that the sports team's most engaged audiences are those that have the mobile app. So while the At-Bat app may not be my favorite app, show of hands for those that have the At-Bat app. Right. Most of you are the strongest engagement, and that's why that's there.
And it's the best app.
Oh, sorry. Pardon me. Well, I stand corrected.
It's the best one in the league. It's like the one that everybody's on.
For the league, yes, 100%. So, great app. I'll take it all back. Great app.
I'm just saying, that's one everybody wants to like.
Correct. Okay. But long story short, no, I love it. Please correct me.
I just got skipped this time.
I got skipped. It went to Nikki, then went to. It's okay.
I'm mixing it up for you guys.
We're just mixing it up. But long story short, I work with a lot of great teams from around the leagues, NFL, NHL, international. And what the coolest thing is working in the NFL, I work a lot with the digital teams there. And 51% of the NFL teams are women that run the account. So 51% of NFL team accounts that you probably engage with every day are run by women. And yet there's still that stigma that women aren't enough in sports. So I love my job. I love my job here. I love my job now at Rover. And yeah, it's really nice to see how many more women I realized are in the game.
You know, when I did an interview today with CBC, and you know, we were just talking about the challenge, you know, of pushing for diversity in sports when it comes to women and changing some of the unconscious bias and some of the gender bias issues that are out there. And I went to a conference, and a woman said, she was in the audience, and you know, she was just giving her comment. She says, you know, this whole diversity thing, it's too much. It's never going to change. What do you say to someone who says something like that?
I think Alexis should handle that question.
I'll keep it short, maybe. I'll try. I mean, I think people really do not realize the perception of diversity goes beyond women, but I think strictly speaking to women in sports, people don't realize the perceptions that they have. And for me, it's been a lot of pointing it out. So whenever somebody asks me, how did you get into baseball? I always say, like, would you ask a man that question? Because the answer is no. You wouldn't ask a man that question. Even when I talk to people about scouting and I want to get into player development and I love the amateur side of the game, or even every time I come to like a talk like this, it won't happen here because I'm going to call everybody out. People are like, wow, like you know so much about baseball. And I'm really torn between saying like, thank you, or saying like, did you think I was just here to meet the quota? Because I'm not. And it's so hard. People don't realize it. And I think there's just so much of that happening. And none of it is overtly sexist. Like asking someone how they got into the game isn't. But my answer is I got into it the same as everybody else. I mean, my parents were taking my brother to play baseball. And I was like, can I play too? And they're like, sure. And dumped me in the boys' league. And that was where I stayed until I was the only girl left, and my mom was like, they're a little bigger than you. And they were a lot bigger than me. But it's the same as every guy. I just played. I played baseball until I realized I wasn't good enough to keep playing baseball, and then I wanted to find another way into it, which is what every guy who does not play, who is around the game, is what they did. So for me, I think I have to point out that like diversity is important, and I do try to point that out a lot. And I didn't realize it either when I was starting to get into it. I just thought if I knew what I knew, if I worked hard, if I kept pushing, things would just kind of evolve from there. And I think once I got into the game, once I got in working with the Blue Jays and started seeing the lack of diversity around me, I started seeing other people in the league. I started seeing what was going on. That was when it really changed, and I realized, like, this may not be for me. And I think that it needs to be constantly pointed out. I know it gets for people who are like, this is too much, it's never going to change. And I already said, I don't think it's changed. I think it just needs to be consistently addressed, and it just can't be forgotten.
That's what we're doing here. We're amplifying those voices, right? And I'm nicely, right? You told us to stop you if you were going over. Until I work in media. For each of you, because I'm one of those people that, you know, I went to that conference and that woman, she stood up and she said that, and I get her sentiment, but I'm like, that's not enough for me. We've got to change it, and we may not change it overnight, but we're going to change it, you know. And as I said, I see it with all the work that you guys are doing, and, you know, Dana, with your launching, you know, Toronto Girls Baseball. But really quickly, from all four of you, what are some solutions? What could the leagues do better? You know, whether it's social, fan engagement, marketing, hiring practices. Where could they start, and what advice would you give them?
Okay, I'll start. You know, I met with a person who shall not be named, who's the president of a certain baseball organization, which also shall not be named. And, you know, he was really nice that he met with me, and he said, girls play baseball? And I said, oh, that really hurt. Like, ow. But since then, I have to say that he has been one of the most supportive people that I have dealt with. And I, again, think that awareness is 9/10 of the problem and the solution. I think that, what he has done for me and the conversations that we've had about advancing this. And he recognized, that maybe he could be part of the solution was an amazing thing. And, there are those people who laugh when you say girls baseball and not softball. And I think one of the main things that we have to try to push for is that amazing women's baseball team, that we have women's baseball in the Olympics. Because I think that baseball for girls and for women is a lot similar to where hockey was for women 10 years ago. So, if we just remember that hockey did it and that we can do it for baseball too, and we just need to push the right buttons and talk to the right people and not be scared to say, girls play baseball. Like, get over yourself. Which clearly you're not afraid to say.
I'm not afraid to say everything. I think people need to listen. People need to start being willing to listen. Even my current boss right now, who hired me, who believes in the work that I do and the things that I've done and has known me for a long time, and sometimes I think he just kind of says some stuff to fire me up, because clearly I get fired up. But even when I start talking about women in baseball and diversity and hiring and things like that, he kind of says, well, everybody should just hire the best person for the job. And I agree with that, but I think the perception is different. And speaking only to women, there are other diverse groups again, but the perception is so different that they don't get included in those groups to be a candidate, to be the best. Every game I've ever been to, every baseball environment I've ever been to for the first time, whether I'm scouting or writing or watching or just there, whether it's on the backfield, major leagues, minor leagues, whatever, somebody has asked me, who are you here with? Every time. Who are you here with? I actually had a very interesting conversation with Tom McNamara, the farm director of the Mariners, one time, because he thought I was one of the players' girlfriends. And he's an idiot. Because you can't just assume that. But I think listening to people and seeing that the perception is different, even my boss, saying, buddy, you don't go to a ballpark every time and have someone ask you who you're here with. You don't have people ask you every day how you got into baseball or why you love it so much. And that's because you're a man and I'm a woman. And I think that people just need to be willing to listen and try to understand. If they can't understand, they can't get it. Too bad, move on to the next. But people need to listen.
We're going to move on to Nikki then. I'm finding clever ways to do this.
I think it goes both ways, honestly. I think there's a responsibility on both ends, and it's really hard to be on the receiving end a lot of times, because that's where we are, right? And we didn't ask for that, but we love this, and we love it so much, and we love the people that we do it for, that sometimes it just outweighs some of the things that you have to do to get there, just like the long nights and the no pay or cheap pay, kind of things that we did. But there's a lot of things that happen still in Major League Baseball, especially in visiting clubhouses. I get ushered to the media lounge half the time, which I'm not the media, I'm with the team. I get called a nutritionist. I get called a lot of different, or they'll be like, oh, hey, you're Stephanie. I'm like, Stephanie's great. No, I'm Nikki. But it happens a lot. And, even in the playoffs, actually, in 2016, we went to a certain place, and I was literally banned from going into the clubhouse. I was at the tail end. I had to stop to get my ID out. We all have these Major League Baseball IDs. And then we're all going in, and coach. Everyone's going in, all the guys, boom, boom, boom. I'm going in right behind them, like, ma'am. And they stop me. I'm like, oh, what's up? And they're like, we need to see your card. I'm like, perfect. And I pulled it out and showed him, and he kind of did
and you were like, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm the head athletic trainer.
And he couldn't, he still wouldn't let me in. And so he's like, can you call someone? So I had to call our strength coach inside the locker room to come out and get me, to let me in the clubhouse, and I'm part of the medical staff. And there was a lot of rage kind of in there, and I was like, why? Don't say anything. But, I educated him very firmly, and so did our strength coach, and so did the player who came out with the strength coach, he was actually really upset. And they get a little more irritated than I do, because it still happens. We go into a ballpark and there's a security person there, and it'll be like one person, two person, coach, player, ma'am, and it happens a lot. And they'll be like, leave her alone. She's our trainer. And, we go along. But the way that we handle those things in the heat of the moment, I have to go to those clubhouses every year. I deal with those people all the time. And so now, because of that, this is my 3rd year with the team. When I go there, they say, hey, Nikki, how's it going? And, now they actually know that I'm going to need a bathroom somewhere that's not inside the clubhouse because there's no bathrooms in a lot of the clubhouses, right? And so they'll be like, here's the key to the family room. Here's your bathroom key. And so they've learned along the way because of our interactions. And it's really, really hard when those things happen. It's extremely frustrating, I think. But I think the way sometimes that we handle them helps progress it. I also think that it goes the other way, like you guys said, is, they have to be open. Like when I took this job with the Blue Jays, they said, you're the first physical therapist we've ever hired. And I was like, wow. And they're like, you're the first female that we've hired. I'm like, whoa, like this is a lot. And so I didn't know what I was getting into. But I think, it took me back because I did see for a baseball team that was they were interviewing interns, and this is what kind of drove it home for me. There was a stack of papers, and I ended up getting a hold of them at a later point, and I was flipping through them, and they were hiring an intern for the year, and the name was gender neutral, and they had figured out it was a girl, and it had female written on it. And I was like, okay, this is where we have to get better. And so it kind of drove it home to me that, like, I'm representing this person a little bit, like maybe she didn't get through here, but I did. And I think we have that responsibility to kind of keep that going. We have to open the eyes of our front office and baseball. And, our front office is great with diversity. We have a ton of women that work in our high performance department all the way throughout. I think they're just looking for the best person, but I think that we have to keep that moving throughout Major League Baseball and throughout baseball as a sport. So I know it's a little bit long, but I think that it's a two-way street. I think it's how we handle it. And then obviously on their end, it's more like you said, awareness.
April? How do I follow that? It's interesting. On the team I was at the Jays, there was a ratio of 11-1, and the 1 was a guy. So the Jays marketing and digital team was very female-centric. So I felt very welcome there. It was a great environment for women to excel. But you go down the road and you speak to other departments, whether that was scouting or ticketing, and it was not the same situation. So in the same way that your parents said there's no can't, and there's the same way that you're raising, your daughter saying you can play baseball, I think, we and as parents, we have to tell our friends, our family, that if you want to be a scout, a female scout like Alexis did, then you can do it. If you want to be a female anything or a black anything, you can do that. So it's obviously, your situation where you saw the resumes saying female, that obviously does put us in a tough situation, but at least someone there told them to apply. So I think it's like we all said, it's a two-way street, but just keep pushing because it's tough. It's tougher. And as Alexis says, it's really, really tough, but it's doable.
Switching gears a little bit, Kim Eng is the highest ranking female executive in MLB. She's the SVP of baseball operations. Is the league ready for its first female GM?
I think so. And I think the NBA is kind of pushing forward with a lot of that, and we may see that happen in the NBA first. I hope not. I hope this sport puts the best people in those positions. And we have at winter meetings, we kind of get together with there's a women's event at winter meetings, and it's really cool because we're all used to being around men all the time, and then there's just this room, and like Beyonce's blaring, and there's like a whole bunch of women in there that smell really nice, and it's like it's like we all get together and we talk about these things of like similar to you, like, oh, here's the family room, you must be with one of the players, or we were talking about some of the scouts, she's like, yeah, I always get turned around, when I'm trying to scout. So it's it's an interesting situation, but I think just like no one knew if they were ready for the first scout, and no one knew if they were ready for the first assistant GM, and no one knew if they were ready for the first head trainer. Like, they're going to figure out they're ready when the first person that's ready to take that job comes to the scene. What do you got?
I'm probably just talking.
No,
I think the league. I think it's going to take some time. I honestly think it could be Emily. I think it could be my scout school roommate. And the Dodgers are, again, nobody's great at it, but the Dodgers are better at it. The Dodgers have Kim Ng, the Dodgers have Emily, they have Megan Schroeder, who is the head of the research and development department there. The Dodgers just kind of seem to have they just do it earlier than other teams do it. Other teams are doing those things too. But I definitely think it will happen. It should happen soon. Will it happen soon? Probably not. But the league's ready for it.
But we said can, right?
Yeah.
We're saying can.
Yeah.
It can happen.
So, do you want to answer? Well, I can answer because the question makes me sad. I mean, should we be ready? Yes. Can it happen? Yes. Are there women who are capable of doing it? Of course. But I have found just in my dealings with people in the baseball community that it is still such an old boys network that it wouldn't even be considered. The fact that they mark a resume with the word female, that's not a one-time thing. That is just the way that it works. You're female, stand back. That door's for you. Like it's just there. Nobody's ready. We might be ready in this room, but I don't think that. I think it's like is there going to be a female president of the United States? You hope so. Like, it could happen. Somebody's ready to do it, but no, I don't think so. But prove me wrong. You prove me wrong. One of you. Somebody. Okay, just call Emily.
I think it's like really important too, like you said, is like who thought Kim was gonna do what she was gonna do, right? And even some of the questions that I've gotten since I took this position, I had no idea were coming. I just took the role because it was my job to do, right? And so it takes me to a player who is a veteran, an all-star multiple times, probably a Hall of Famer, told me to my face, kind of didn't talk to me at first in the beginning when I first started here, and he told me later he thought I was a nurse. He was like, yeah, I thought you were in spring training because you were a nurse and you just stayed, so I thought you were like our team nurse. And I was like, so he still kind of like calls me the nurse sometimes, but affectionately, but he told me to my face, like, hey, listen, and in front of his coach, one of his coaches and his mentors, like, I didn't think that women belonged in baseball until I met Nikki. And she proved me wrong. And he said that, and he had never said that to me. And he said that in front of one of his mentors to my face out at BP one day. And it was one of the truest, realest moments of knowing, like, man, all those frustrations, every time I got so mad when someone made a comment, this guy was affected because he just went about our business as normal, So I think there's going to be a first. Like, that was a first for him, and he was willing to admit it. And I think when there's that first, like you said, the Dodgers have had a lot of firsts. They had Sue Falzone first, the first head trainer. And so, they've done a lot of firsts, and I don't know what team it's going to be, but I think when that first happens, it might be just like that player where he's willing to sit back and be like, you know what, I was wrong.
And I know all of you, based on social media and just talking to you guys, are definitely diehard baseball fans. Tell me a little bit about one of your favorite baseball moments, whether something in the past or something that recently happened. It doesn't have to be MLB, but what sparks in your mind as your favorite baseball moment?
A lot of great moments. I'm going to do two, but really quick.
That's fine.
One, so in 2013, great. Yeah, in 2013, I was in the Major League Baseball fan cave, which some of you will know, some of you won't. It was a semi-reality TV show that was based in Manhattan. And every day, baseball players would come visit us, and we would create digital content. So we all lived in this cave, house. We couldn't leave. It was on MTV. It was really, really weird. But because it was based in New York, visiting teams and local teams, players would come. And one of my favorite moments in that whole time, there was two. One, we took Edwin and Jose Bautista to the golf driving range, and they just hit baseballs over and over and over again. And there was nothing more beautiful than that. And the second one, I had interviewed Kevin Pillar quite a bit growing up. I had run this baseball prospect site a little bit growing up, and I had followed him a bit and interviewed him a bit, and he ended up getting called up his first week while they were in New York. And so I ended up messaging him on Facebook and say, hey, like, we don't have anybody on Tuesday. Can you come? And he was like, sure. And he brought his family and he came. And the fan cave people, bless their souls, were like, he's not really anybody. And they let me do the whole tour. I took him around. We played cornhole. I made a video myself. And it's still on YouTube. And he's so fresh. And like, he told me everything. Like, it's a really funny video. But what a really great guy that came. And then really quickly, last moment, my first month on the job, 2016 wildcard game, I was down tweeting, and I'm just tweeting anything I possibly can down in the camera bay, and I really can't see what's going on, and I'm communicating with my colleague who's in the press box at the time, and I'm like, okay, I really can't see anything, so it's up to you, and the crack of the bat. All I heard was the crack of the bat. And all I hear is, run on the field. I'm like, yay, we won. We won. And I'm just like running, and I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember seeing Edwin later, and I was like, that was a great sack fly. Because all I knew was we had a guy on third. I didn't even know it was a home run at the time. And while we were in there celebrating in the clubhouse, and again, I was a fan that was like, just play cool, you're cool. Champagne's going all over me. I remember Hazel May was standing there, and she was a good mentor for me while I was there. And she had been getting shot with champagne as well. And mascara was just dripping down her face. She's like, what do I do? I just remember throwing off my blazer and be like, for you! And she, anyways. You asked for a favorite moment.
I loved it. Nikki?
I think like there's a lot of really powerful moments that keep coming to me. I was about to start working here when Game 5 happened and the Jose Bautista bat flip. I was here in the stands for that, and the wild card game comes to mind. The first champagne shower, the beer showers, flying back smelling like the beer because there's nowhere for anyone to shower. That all that makes a lot of memories for me, but I feel like the first time, or one of the most powerful moments for me, was realizing that I wasn't just part of the team, that I was part of a family. And I think that first time was after we lost in the playoffs, and it was like this huge rush of emotion, like, oh, we're going to the playoffs, and we found out in Boston, champagne, woo, and then Texas, we swept Texas, more of that, you get in the Cleveland, ALCS, and everything's boom, 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 and then there's this huge, just boom, letdown. Everyone's sad, everyone's upset, and, everyone kind of just takes their time clearing out. Players come in, they start to get their stuff, staff do, they start to pack up, and you start thinking about next year. And the first time that I really felt like part of the family was after we lost. And I didn't realize that because it was all fun before that. But after we lost, one by one, players start coming down and they start telling you, hey, thanks for what you did this year, da-da-da-da-da, this is what's going on with my family, what can we do in the off season? And it became this personal relationship. And that's when even, I think about my first baseball games and my first time to the Braves, and all those things were so powerful, but in this game, probably the most powerful thing was when it changed from being a game to being a family for me.
Obviously, the trip to Japan was like a favorite overall moment for sure, but the Pan Am Games for me really stand out. Team Canada, men's team and women's team both played in Ajax on home soil. The men's team won gold in crazy international extra inning rule, and like it's not on TV or anything, and we're sitting there and you kind of don't even know what's going on. You're like, where's the ball going? Who's running where? What's happening? Is he safe? What? And then like Adam is the PR guy for Baseball Canada, and he was like, I don't know what just happened, but this is amazing. And I was like, yeah, and we just kind of rushed down and to see how happy those guys were for each other, for Team Canada's head coach or national team director, Greg Hamilton. That's truly, truly a family that I've felt a part of too, and being a part of that family is so amazing, and that was awesome to see those guys win gold, win it on home soil. They were back-to-back gold medal winners, and then the women's team got to play after them, and they won silver, but for them, that was the first time they were ever a part of a multi-sport event. The Women's Baseball World Cups are just women's baseball. really awesome, but they had never been in an athlete's village. They had never been around these other people. They had never met the guys on our guys' national team, and it was amazing for them, and just for me to get to be there and hear their stories and listen to them was amazing. And then last moment, there's a lot of moments, but this year, I followed Mike Soroka. He pitches for the Atlanta Braves. He's injured right now. He's 21 years old in the next couple days, or a couple days ago. Maybe last week. So he's 21, and I covered Mike Soroka since he was a member of the junior national team, playing for Team Canada, coming from Calgary, Alberta, and to see him start a major league game here against the Blue Jays, to talk to him, to talk to his dad, to talk to his great uncle who came here from Vancouver because he couldn't get medical insurance to go to the States to see him pitch. It was amazing. It was such a surreal moment to hear how grateful Mike was, to see him look, and he was like, I've never seen the Dome open before, because he's from Calgary, so he'd been here for Tournament 12, it was never open, and just to see that, and to see him pitch, and have some success, amazing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, I grew up watching baseball. My parents had tickets to baseball. I've always liked watching baseball, but my moments, and I've had some amazing moments that I'm privileged to have. I haven't been in this for as long as these ladies have, but I went to visit the MLB office in New York and had some meetings there, and I've been in this building for some meetings, and those are, milestone moments for me. But I think that I have two favorite moments, and I will be fast. The first one is I'm going to cry. My daughter, who, is 9 now, was invited this winter to go out and train with the women's under-16 team, our Ontario baseball team. And to me, it just showed that this little girl who was ready to quit, that was such a confidence-building moment for her, and whether she decides to continue with baseball or not, to me, that's just now something that she can be proud to say she was a part of. And, okay, I'm good. And then thank you. And then my other thing is, and I know it's cheesy, but my mom, who's also here, there are days that we have 475 girls lining up for their uniforms because I don't understand how to manage that many people when it keeps changing, doubling from year to year. And, my mom's standing out there in the cold for hours, and my daughter's standing out there, and there's all these parents who are surrounding me, and I realize that this is a family, this is a community, and this is building something. And to me, it's about my family's there, and then I have, now almost 1,000 daughters and their families who, will just hand me a check and say, here you go, this is just in case you need to buy something else, and, or they'll just send me notes that really just break my heart into a million pieces, and those are my moments, because I can be really proud of, building this for them, with them. This is a community, this is a movement, and I hope that we can all, continue to support it and build it and make it better and bigger, and yeah.
I'm glad that you ended on that note, because, She's for Sports obviously wants to continue the conversation with women in sports. We want to make sure people know your names, make sure people know the talented women who are contributing to baseball. And it is a movement, and all of you guys are part of this movement. For me, with She's for Sports, I'm humbled when people send me a DM message saying, I know somebody, a female in baseball, or I know a female in hockey. Do you think you'd want to talk to her? We all know, some of us, who these women are, but obviously, they're not out there in the mainstream media. So I definitely also rely on the community to tell me, these are some women that you should be featuring. So thank you for that. And with that, I'm going to end this panel just so that you guys get to ask them some questions.
Hi, I'm Leslie from Twitter. My question's for April. So you are in the middle of a Venn diagram of male-dominated fields of both professional sports and tech, right? You're working Rover. This is tech.
how is that? How do you navigate that? What is that like for you?
The tech world is almost as male dominated as the sports world is, and maybe that's why I like it so much. You know, I am able to succeed at the organization I'm at because my employer believes in me, and I'm not seen as a woman in the field, and I'm not seen as a pioneer in the industry. It's just, I am April. I really like creating digital media content for sports teams, and that's pretty much it. But you're right, there's still a stigma. It's a great question, Leslie, because it's still a difficult industry to get into as a woman, and the one thing that makes it even more difficult is that it is in this industry, it is often who you know, not what you know. All of us can attest that we all know the same way that we can all go to just get the right education, get the right experience, fight for the right internships. We all have that experience, and sometimes, as I found in both the sports industry and the tech industry, it's who you know to get in. So I was very blessed to know somebody at the organization that I'm at now, and I was very blessed to be as loud as I could on Twitter for long enough that they paid attention to get my job at the Jays. So a great question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Piper. I'm from Oakville, and it's kind of a question for everyone. So I know a lot of people, well, not really a lot, but I know some people who say like sexism doesn't exist anymore. Like everything's equal now. And how would you guys say like people responding, like people who you met, anyone responding with that same attitude? You know, like how they feel. Have they ever said to you when you speak about that stuff, like, no, that's not happening anymore?
I think it's awareness, you know, like they don't have to deal with a lot of the things that we have dealt with, you know, so sometimes they just go on and they don't know. Like I knew one of our players for a year and a half, and then one day he came to me and he goes, I have a really personal question to ask you. I'm like, okay, go for it. No, it's really personal. I'm like, okay, go for it. And he goes, where do you go to the bathroom? And it was like, I'd known him for a year and a half. We have a great relationship, and I died laughing, but it was awareness. I knew him for a year and a half before he asked, like, he's like, you always go away and you never come back. Like, I have to walk half a mile. Like, why? But he asked, but he didn't know for that whole first year and a half and all the years up until that, you know? So I think the reason that people think that sexism or racism or, you know, I come from a town in the south of the States, and there's still racism very alive and well there. There's still sexism very alive and well there. I've been told many a times that I should have been married at 22 with 3 kids already and been in the kitchen and married a football player and all that good stuff, and it's still there. And so I think until we draw awareness to it, we have to educate them. When they say things like that, instead of getting mad and be like, these people don't understand, thinking about what you're going to say and being thoughtful and educating them, you may just bring someone to become your ally, I think.
Another question?
This is like baton passing.
Hi, my name is Laura. Thank you so much, all of you. And thank you, Alexis. Everything you've said has been wonderful, so don't worry. It's great to hear all the voices. So my question, hopefully, my main question is, how much do you think women's increased involvement in baseball relies on women playing baseball? And I'm asking this because my primary sport growing up was hockey. When I started hockey, my mom started our team in my town, and now it's like a big thing. But certainly, as a huge hockey fan growing up, I never saw women represented, and they were never broadcasting, never anywhere near the sport from a professional angle. And so it has been really fascinating to see the growth of women's hockey in Canada, and also to see how that's corresponded with, I think, women's increased legitimacy as being people who can speak about the sport. And I think I don't think we can ignore the fact that it's happened as our country collectively has really taken on women's hockey as something we're all really proud of, all of these gold medals and world championships and things like that. But baseball is interesting because the way that women tend to come to the game is through softball. And so without wanting to like raise a big tension on the difference between those sports, I do just wonder, what your thoughts are on that. Will it take women playing baseball in order to actually work and be professionals in the field?
I don't think it relies on women playing the game, but I do think it relies on seeing more women in the game at different roles. Seeing Nikki on the field opens up so many more avenues. If I was a little kid watching games, which I was, and I saw Nikki on the field, I would have been like, ooh, I could do this. Like, this is something I could do. But that just wasn't a thing. If I saw a female coach, if I saw a female journalist interviewing like Hazel, that didn't happen when I was a little kid either. So just seeing women do different things in baseball, I think definitely is an opener, whether it's playing or not.
And a good answer. I completely agree. But I also think that there is power in numbers. And I think that when we look at the numbers of girls playing baseball in this country, the numbers that are recorded, we have, for example, about 150,000 boys and about 11,000 girls. So when those numbers start to come up, I think that people will say, girls are in the game. And it's not about how much you love it, and it's not about how much you know, but it's about, do we have to keep proving it? And if girls are in the game, maybe we have to prove it less, and we can just go on and, just be a legitimate part of it that nobody says, who are you here with?
Any other questions? Hi, I'm Liz. A lot of what you said is really, it's really quite powerful and impactful. I think about what you were saying, April, about engaging the female fans, but I really think the Jays and MLB needs to do a better job. I have, and something you said, Nikki, too, about it being relational and stuff, and I find a lot of times women engage that way a lot more. Not always, and not to generalize, but a lot of times. And a situation that happened, I go to spring training, I'm a big fan, I've got to know a lot of the different players and chatting with them and that. And I saw Russ Atkins about a month and a half ago, and I said, Russ, when are you going to bring up Jordan Romano? You bring up all these young guys. He goes, are you his family? And I looked at him, I go, actually, no, I'm not. I said, I'm a fan. I met him in spring training, and he's really good. And I've kept track of him down in AA. And like, he was like quiet. He's like, oh. And he's like, and he did, like I said, that's okay, I said, women do, and he was like, I saw him 2 days ago. He goes, hey, you're the big Romano fan. Maybe he's going to be coming up one of these days. And it's just kind of, I was like really taken aback by that. I'm like, okay, we still have some work to do. But that kind of thing, I don't know, April, if you have, I guess in the work that when you were here, if you have any ideas or thoughts that could.
All I can say is that I was actually really included. Again, it was very female-centric, but there was never any issues based on gender. And as the organization, and I said this before, from my stance, the Blue Jays never looked at their fan base as male or women. And again, being behind that @Blue Jays handle, females, you rock. You made the day so much better. And there were days, and I talk about this often, but there were so many days, nobody really knows the grind. And it's funny that we really haven't spoken about that, because maybe that's just a gender neutral thing. But the grind of baseball and sports, and I'm sorry, you could probably know it more than all of us right now, it's unreal. And I got so many go kill yourself because nobody really knows they're talking to a person. And there's a few of you that I see around the room that were tweeting, don't worry guys, we'll get them tomorrow. And you, as an organization, you want passionate fan bases. You don't care, if it's negative, it still means they're passionate, So it was always a good thing. And I know I kind of went around it, but to answer your question, it was a very inclusive thing, and we really did see, we obviously segmented groups, target audiences, and a question about this, or just another question?
Oh, that's my question.
All right, perfect. I appreciate that. I think Mackenzie had a question. Is that correct? I'll go pass it.
Do you think that you can stand up and project?
It's okay. I know Mackenzie. I'll give her the mic.
I've already answered that.
Okay, I'm Mackenzie. Just a question on behalf of females that want to go into the sports industry, not necessarily just baseball, just as a general, any general advice for new grads and specifically new grads that are females that want to get into the sports industry. Do you have any general advice that you would offer to those people?
I think, like you said, like we were talking about, your reputation is extremely hard to build and it's extremely easy to lose. So everything that you do has to be considered and thoughtful and professional, the way you go about things. And for example, sometimes it might be a little bit more than a male counterpart. You might have to be a little bit smarter. You might have to do a little bit more. You might have to work a little bit harder all the time. Yeah. And even in some things like people take notice of the little things. You don't think they do, but they really do. Two things, and I'll give you two examples, and they're two things that I didn't even think about. This is how close people watch you. Coach Cutcliffe is the football coach for the Duke football team. He watched me all football season when I worked there. He did not tell me he was watching me, but he watched me all football season. At the end of the season, he pulled me up into his office. No one gets called into his office, so I thought I was in trouble. And so hey, what's going on? And he said, I just want you to know, I watched you all season. I've never had a female work for me. I didn't know how it was going to go having a female work for me. And what I found out is that there's no job that's too small for you. I saw you pick up trash. I saw you pick up water bottles. And I saw you treat players with the utmost respect. And now you have my respect for life. If you need anything, you call me. And that was one of the most unbelievable moments because it was the little things. It wasn't, the things that people think about, like the resumes and those types of things. It's literally just being a good person and people watching those things. The second one, I kind of forgot what I was going to say on that one. Yeah, go ahead and take another question.
Hi, I'm Keisha. I'm actually an East Coaster too. Woo!
Whereabouts?
Nova Scotia.
New Brunswick.
Oh, okay. So my question is around kind of diversity and representation, and kind of what you guys were speaking to, and just any advice you would have for like a woman of color. Looking at the panel tonight, obviously I don't see any women of color up there. So what advice, you were describing it as it was hard and challenging to get into the positions that you are as women. But as you know, like women of color have that even more of a challenge. So any advice you can give women of color coming up in this kind of sports industry?
I'm glad that you asked that question because I knew I was going to get it. If anybody knows me, I definitely do my best and try really hard to find the right voices at the table. And I would say, did try to source somebody of color working in baseball. It was challenging. I got as far as a woman who lives in Montreal who is a staff writer for a specific news organization, but she got back to me and said, I kind of would like to do this, but I don't know if I'm the right person because she does write about sports and other things. She's not really a sports writer. So I did try. And if you guys have noticed my other She's4Sports events, we really do try to have a very great, lineup of women, whether it's diversity of thought, whether it's diversity in terms of the color of the person. But I tried, and I felt like these four were the best that I could do. Thank you. Let me clarify. You guys know I have love for you. The best voices I could find with looking for the women that I had. You can tell I've been up since 6:30 from going to CBC this morning and trying to help push this event and help talk about all the great stuff we do. So now I'm Alexis, right?
Okay, I'll stop it. I think I honestly, when people come up to me and ask me or say, like, my daughter wants to get into sports, what does she do? What can she do? What have you done? Give her some advice. I just say, like, stay away. I really do. I love baseball so much. I'm super passionate about baseball, and now I've invested a decade of my life into it, and it's still super hard, but I think that the best way to combat that is just to fight and be there in it and create your own opportunities. There's not going to be opportunities. There's not going to be access, and you need to create those for yourself, and then once you're in there, it opens the door for the next person too, and it's so hard. I really think it's super hard, and I am so fortunate to have the support of my mother who's here too, because like financially and like mentally, she's helped me along the way, and you do have to have allies as well, but just create opportunities for yourself.
There's another point to that. I think your diversity point was extremely. It made me think a little bit because I came from a really rough area. So this area in North Carolina is, actually I call it Hickory. I lived even further outside of Hickory. So this is like the boondocks, okay? And there's not a lot of progressive thought there. The other thing that's different there is a lot of people live below the poverty level, right? So whether it's challenges like you're talking about, whether it's like financial challenges, diversity challenges, just trying to get out of something where you feel like you're stuck and you see someone on TV and you're like, I want to do that. How do I get from where I am, where I feel like I'm stuck or there's no doors open, to where I really want to be? And at the end of the day, every single person that's sitting in here, every single one of you and all of us are a statistic. All of us are. Whether you like it, whether you want to accept it, you are. I started off as a statistic I didn't like, and I'm making myself into one that I like. And so you can control what's on the other end of that. I think that's where it starts. And I think that goes to both of your questions is, whether it's diversity, whether it's, with race, religion, gender, any of those things, or financial situations, you are able to overcome whatever those obstacles are in your way because you're focused on not being satisfied with where you started.
These lovely ladies did such a good job, yeah.
I did, yeah. I do have one. I will now use the microphone instead of just shouting at April. When you say that the when you say that the Blue Jays had segmented audiences they were interested in, what were those segmented audiences? If they weren't women and men, what was it? Is that too inside baseball or like okay?
No, some of it was segmented based on season tickets. So there was the True Blues that were going to come to the game win or lose. We knew that the Liz's of the world were going to show up whether we won or whether we lost. There were different divisions that we knew they were the family goers. So we knew that if they changed the timing on Saturdays, that it would be an inconvenience or it would be a convenience based on timing. But it was a lot more segmented that way, more than just the moms or dads or girls or sons. It was based on the level of engagement with the team. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess I have a two-part question. My name's Melanie. I'm from East Coast. My question, I guess, is I have a cousin who has 3 boys. They all play hockey. They're diehard hockey fans. The oldest is 14, and his best friend's female, and she wants to actually end up being a coach or an assistant coach in the NHL, of course, because she plays hockey as well. And he thinks she can do it. She's being very supported. But his brother, who is 2 years younger, is like, no, it's not going to happen. The difference is that their gym coach and hockey coach is female in the high school that they go to, and the 2-year younger cousin of mine it's male. So my question, I guess, is if there's more female roles, like in the younger stages, and the stigma, I guess, is being addressed more now, can you see it, I guess, being better in the future, like for our kids' generation, I guess, is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, for girls, they can't be what they can't see, and for boys, they can't, accept what they can't see. I have a son, which I've mentioned, and he is a AAA baseball player. He's 10. He has a boy on his team who was really struggling this year with hitting. He could hit outside of any game, but once you stuck him in a game, he just terror at the plate. Somebody could pitch at him at practice, he was fine. During the game, it was too much pressure. So I actually have a female coach who is not a national team player. She's just an amazing older woman who has this great attitude. And I said, listen, her name's Dee. I said, Dee, you gotta come out and just practice with him. And she did. And at the next game he played, it is true, it's not a Disney movie, he got a hit. And the first thing he did when he got into his car was call Dee and say, I got a hit. So for me, I think that just put into Ben's little head that, I can be coached by a woman and she can fix my problem when every other male coach I had could not. So it's directly related. You see the woman coaches you, the woman helps you, the woman is involved in sport, and you just recognize as a little person, that's just part of life. Women can do it, men can do it, and women bring something different to coaching than men do. It's not, they bring the same thing, they bring different things, it's just, we bring different things to the jobs that we do. So to have diversity in those areas, helps any person.
Hi, I'm Kim. I don't work in sports, but I am in a professional setting for my work. Nikki, you mentioned the coach at Duke noticing you doing the small things, like picking up after people and that shows integrity, and that's amazing. But I do feel like in my workplace anyway, that a lot of that is kind of shuffled over onto the women. There's that expectation at a base level that those sort of den mother roles like potlucks and cleaning up after the potlucks and all of that there's an expectation there that we kind of take care of those things. Have any of you experienced that, and how exactly do you combat it? Because it's super annoying. Thank you.
What's funny? I would say it's the exact opposite. I think they're a little bit afraid of me most of the time because I'm pretty tough, and I think that's part of it is that sometimes you just assume to be the nurturing. Doesn't mean you're not nurturing when you're tough on guys, but you assume that you're going to be a little softer on them, or, you're here to clean up after them. They know not to leave the training room a mess. They know that time is important. They know to be on time. And, there's only one rule in the training room, and it's not about food or cell phones or anything else. It's about respect. And if they respect, we don't have to talk about any of the other stuff. And that's something that we go over at the beginning of the year. But I think that's a really interesting, yeah. Oh. Well, the first time I met Stro, actually, and he'll tell this too, we have a good enough relationship that he's all right with that. But so the first time that I met him, I had a really tight schedule, and I didn't know if I could take his case. And the director of the K-Lab was like, you got to take this case. We really need you on this guy. And I'm like, I can't. I got a lot of people on my schedule, and I think I'm not going to be able to dedicate the time that this player needs. And he said, no, I think we need your personality for this. And that kind of freaked me out. And I was like, I don't know if I like that or not, but I'll give it a whirl. And so he comes in and, he's doing his thing, kind of coming in, and he was limping, actually, at the time. I was watching him come in, and I look at my watch, and he was late. And I was mad because I had other people to see. And so he came in, and hey, I'm Marcus, hey, I'm Nikki, and he sat down, and I said, you're a baseball player, right? And he said, yep. And I said, you're familiar with 3 strikes? And he was like, he kind of looked at me, and I said, that's 1. You're late. And he was like, what does that mean? And I said, if you there's 2 more, then you got to find a new PT. And he looked at me, like, we kind of like looked at each other, and then he kind of started laughing. He's like, okay. And ever since then, you know, there's a mutual respect based off of that. But that's where it is. At initial relationships with people, when you're building them, you kind of draw that line in the sand, and you see where they meet you, and you meet them where they are, and they meet you where they are, and that's where your relationship starts.
Did he get straight too?
Never. The whole time. Since I've been here 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just kidding.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. My question's for Nikki. I work in a male-dominated, often I'm going to these meetings and I'm the only female, and I'm also the youngest one, always in the room. And you're talking about relationships and being firm and stuff. So I often get told I'm too assertive or whatnot, and have an attitude problem. And I'm just wondering if you've ever experienced that, or how do you deal with that? Like, because you're saying you're tough, and I like to be tough too, right? Because you're in this room, and so what are strategies, or have you ever been told you need to change it, and have you ever thought you needed to change and not be so tough, or?
I think I'm tough with a smile. I think that's where it changes. They all think that I'm sick or dying if I'm not smiling, which is, are you okay? Is everything okay? You all right? Are you tired? You look tired. But I'm really tough on them, but they know that I care. And I think that's why I can be tough on them, because they know if it's 1 a.m., I'm going to be there. If we need to stay that late, if we need to treat something that late, if it's 6 a.m., if their kid's sick, if we need a doctor, if there's someone's tooth hurting, if their girlfriend fell down the stairs, like that kind of stuff, your phone's going off, and those are little things that it shows that you care. And when people know that, they will allow you to be tough on them. And you kind of have to invite the same thing back. And I think that's part of it, is I ask them to be tough on me. I tell them, if you don't feel better, you have to tell me so we can change what we're doing. We can't keep repeating the same things over and over and over. So if you're going to be tough, it has to be a two-way street, and you have to be able to accept that and not only accept it, like ask for it back. And sometimes it hurts, Sometimes you get things back from players or coaches that you're like, man, that sucks. But you learn from it, and your relationship gets stronger and stronger and stronger because you have that open communication.
Hi, my name is Tamara, and I have 2 quick questions. The first one's for Dana. These associations that you started, are you doing this full-time as your career now, or is it volunteer? Because a lot of, in our community, the little leagues and the softball leagues are run by volunteers. So that's my first question, because it seems like a really big job. And my second one is for Nikki. What's it like being in the dugout with a bunch of guys? And did they have to edit when you came on board? Did they edit at all what they kind of say in the dugout? And like, they can't say their guy stuff that they usually say.
Yeah. So, I actually am quite lucky that I worked in media for a long time, and I was injured quite badly. I want to say playing baseball, but really I tripped over my dog. So when I started this, it was just good timing. And I still have the injury, and I do this full time. Do I get paid? No. But I pay others. Because I believe in accountability, and I also believe in reward, and I believe that our national team players and all of our coaches deserve to be paid and paid well, and I believe that anybody who works for me, I need to hold them to account. And I also know from other associations and other leagues that volunteers are hard to find, and they've also started paying, which you wouldn't expect, but they pay their head ump, who's really their site supervisor. So I think that I'm not alone, and that everything's sort of leaning in that direction, because I want people to be dedicated to what I'm doing. And I do want to pay myself eventually. I mean, I think of this is a not-for-profit. I'm not in it to make money, but I also look at it as a startup. And I also think that women shouldn't apologize for wanting to be paid for the work that they put in. So.
The dugout. The dugout's a really fun place because I think people see things happening in there sometimes. They're like, what are they talking about? Because you can see people laughing and joking or pouring seeds on each other or like making fun of each other. And I think initially, when I first started, there was a little bit of kind of feeling it out, like they would say something and then look at me like a little kid, like, uh-oh, you know? And then eventually it became like a family. Like, you don't edit what you say in front of your family. And we're with each other 24/7, coaches, players, trainers, strength coaches. We're together so much. We're together more than we are with our families. And so we live and breathe like a family. And I think most of the time, they probably forget that I'm a girl, most of the time. And we'll have conversations about whatever, the food or girls or, you know, anything. We talk about all that stuff. So I think in the beginning, we have new players. It's about making them feel comfortable. And I don't think we've had an issue with that yet, but I would say there's definitely not any filtering. It's more just kind of open and free and like a family.
I was waiting for this.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment for my mommy. I just wanted to say that I'm very happy that you started this program because I have fun.
Because she will be the future. For a woman in sports or a woman who loves sports who will be able to take it forward, you know, all the stuff that her mom's done. So you're definitely leading by example. She's going to take it over. Anyone else?
Question over here.
So it's not, I'm Michelle, sorry, and I'm from Toronto. It's not a pointed question, but I just want to get your views with the whole Me Too movement that's going on right now, what you think the impact is from like the perspective of the industry, and whether or not you guys think that it's taken seriously within the environments that you've worked in, and whether there's outlets if that was the case.
It's not something I openly talked about, but I guess I trust all of y'all. I was sexually assaulted in university, and there was always this stigma. And I remember telling people and taking a lot of blame, feeling a lot of blame, and yeah, there was really that stigma, and no one really believed you. There was still that, like, that Me Too movement is something that hit home for me, even though it's not something that I really talk about a lot. So to be honest, I think it's a good thing that's happening. It's kind of like what we've been talking about with education. It's gotten people talking about it in the same way that this, having us up here, gotten talking about women in sport. But it obviously pointed at, you know, if you go on Twitter and you look at responses to people who talk about opening up, and that's part of the reason I never really opened up in a public setting. Hello, I did it now, but you know, if you read those comments, a lot of people are like, prove it, or you're just looking for attention, or much, much worse. And so as much as it opened the world to education in that form, and that as much as it told people, look, it happened to me too, as much as it made me feel like, hey, I'm not alone, it also made me realize how backwards this world can still be. So it's the same way that, like, Alexis will point out the realities of working in sports. It's a grind. At the Blue Jays, my mentor had kids. Sherry Osterhaus had kids, but I can't, right now when I think about it, who else had kids? I can't think of anybody else. Some of the gentlemen had kids, but it's a grind. So in the same way as, like, the Me Too movement opened the eyes of people and made people feel inclusive as much as we feel more included looking at one another today, there's still a long ways to go on both sides.
You know, I have a son who I keep talking about. And he, you know, sometimes he gets sick of this whole girls' baseball thing. Why girls' baseball? Why girls? Why always girls? And I have two. So, but I think that I think that we have a responsibility to raise our sons, to know that, they need to respect women. And there was a game that my daughter jumped in to play third base and with his team, and some of the boys on the team were standing around saying, throw it to, her name's Noah, so throw it to Noah, she's not going to get it, you'll get a home run. And my son stood up and said, if you throw it to her, you're going to get out. And it was one of my moments where I said, I feel like he gets it. Like, he can complain all he wants and he can say the words, but really deep down, he understands that, that this is, something. So for me, teaching him to respect women is where it starts. I think everything starts with our little people, And so if all else fails, this little people generation is, has to grow up the right way. So hopefully, it's working.
And for me, I just want, as willing and ready and open as I am to talk about the struggles I've had and the issues I've had, that is something that I've been afraid to talk about. I've had a number of issues that way from the beginning. It is the reason why I work where I work now, because I trust the guys that I work with and I know them and I know that they would stand up for me and listen to me and believe me. And it is 100% why I work where I work now. And I love the kids and I love the organization and it's great, but it's because I can trust them. And it's definitely been something I've been afraid to talk about because it is so hard to break into baseball and so easy to get pushed out of it as a female.
Yeah, I think MLB is starting to do, and we mentioned the diversity and inclusion program. They have a rookie development camp in January. So they had it in DC last year, and I was invited to be a part of the panel. It was really cool. It was Billy Beane, who came out openly gay after his playing career, and his story is very powerful if you listen to it. And myself, and then Curtis Pride, who had a hearing disability, or has a hearing disability. And so what was really cool is that there's 4 players, and you talk about the little people. These are kind of like the little people of baseball. Like, they're prospects, right? They're up and coming. It's a rookie camp. These are 4 players from every organization that are kind of up and coming stars. And it was an entry. It was probably one of the best things I've ever been a part of, because every player came into the room. There are tons of them in there, and they were all given iPads. So they started typing their questions to us anonymously, and then the moderator would read them out. And unbelievable education happened in that room that day. Guys were opening up about issues that they had, and from eating disorders to other things, because they were willing to ask us questions about what it felt like. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of help them open up to, when the Blue Jays made the announcement that we were going to have a woman athletic trainer, I started going through Twitter and screenshotting some of the worst comments so that I could put them up and show them to these males and just see what they thought about it. And they kind of, all kinds of things were going through, and people would, they bring these things to your attention. Our players contacted me like, I'm gonna respond to this. So I'm like, no, you're not gonna respond to this. Please don't respond to this, because then our media people are gonna get all over you. Well, I'm gonna DM this guy. No, you're not. But the players in that room across MLB, not just from the Blue Jays, we had 4 guys in there too, but players across that room, they sat and they looked at those tweets, and they just said, how did that make you feel? And these are grown men, molded, men who are coming up in their early 20s that are asking these questions to a woman, a gay man, and a person with disability. How does that make you feel? How do you handle that? How do you keep going out there and playing when people make fun of you? How do you feel like, you can go out there and ignore what happens on social media? And that education, I think, is what needs to happen, and when they see these things like the Me Too movement, they'll ask questions to me, like, how do you feel safe in this environment? Or do you, even in the reverse sense of it, like we have a clubhouse of guys. I used to walk around the locker room. I'm a medical professional. I've seen the human body in every way you can see the human body. I've dissected it 1,000,000 times. That's too much information. But I've seen it. It's nothing impressive, right? And so these guys, I would go around the locker room and around the locker room and around the locker room, and then you have to go outside of the clubhouse to do that. And Jose Batista finally was like, what are you doing? You keep going around, you're going the long way, just go through the locker room. And I said, I don't want to make anyone feel comfortable. And he looked at me and he was like, I'm gonna get back to you on that. And so, and so he did. And he said, you know, the female journalists are in there much longer than you are, and you're part of the team, you know, so you should feel fine walking through. But that solved it that year. But every year I look around and I reassess and I make sure that my guys feel comfortable with me walking through that room, because they don't walk by while I'm changing. And even though I'm a medical professional and I see their body every day, I want to make sure that I'm looking out for them, because the locker room's always changing with free agents and new guys coming up. And so that education is both ways, I think, from our end and their end. And the Me Too movement, I think, has changed the way that a lot of men had started thinking about how they interact with women. Questions that I've gotten about, would this bother you? Is this bad? You know, and those are real questions, just like those young men that sat in that room and said, does this bother you? How do you feel about that? And so I think it's a great thing, but it's going to continue to evolve. It's back to the whole awareness thing.
My name's Katrina. I'm from the West Coast. I just wanted to say first that I think that you guys are all super amazing women, and thank you so much for doing this. But I wanted to just say to Nikki that I decided that I wanted to be a physiotherapist when I was 12. And I've always loved the Blue Jays, and after watching you and seeing you in the dugout, I decided I want to be a physio for a pro team. So it makes me emotional to think about that. I think that you're
amazing. Whatever I can do to help you, we'll be in touch along the way, and you'll get there. You're welcome.
Hi, my name is June, and I work for Baseball Canada. So I'd like to know from you ladies, do you know that Baseball Canada does things for women's sports, women in baseball? And do you think they should do more if you don't think they're doing more?
Obviously, I do know, because I've been with the women's national team, and Andre LaChance is the head coach of the women's national team, and he really, really, really puts forth a huge effort to try to get more young girls into the game. He takes like a group of younger kind of prospects for the team to Cuba, and the women's national team is different from like the men's team too, because it's girls from 15 to right now 36 years old on the same team. Like there's a 20-year gap, and I do think they do a lot for, and this October they're actually hosting the first women's banquet and fundraiser. There's been a banquet and fundraiser for the junior national team and the men's senior national team for several years, longer than I've known it's been around, and this year will be the first one for the women. So I'm always going to say that more can be done. I'm never going to say the work is done, but I do think they're making a good effort, and I would love to see it keep going for sure.
I have some anger. Look, I love the people at Baseball Canada have been supportive of what I'm doing. So I don't want to minimize that in any way, because I really appreciate it, I need it, and I love it. I will say that in their strategic plan, their goal is to increase girls' participation in baseball by 2%. That's written out in black and white. You can see it online if you want. I mean, I told you the numbers of girls playing baseball versus boys, and what are they doing? And I also know that although we have a women's team, many people have never heard of it, and that the women have to pay for their uniforms. They have to give them back when they're finished wearing them. The men's team doesn't, but who makes those deals? It's Baseball Canada. So I do think that, I say this to people, that they need to be leaders, and the leaders of Baseball Canada need to lead our country and our provincial baseball associations to do the right thing and to do the thing. It's just a no-brainer. Women are half the population. Women are half the money, if you care about the money. Women and girls are half of everything. So put your money where your mouth is, people, and just lead as a national sport organization should lead. And, show people how to do it. And yeah, I think there's a long way to go.
I think first off, thank you all for lending your voices to this conversation, and thanks for all the great questions. I think the way that I would leave it, though, is that, we did hear a lot about the challenges. We heard a lot about what we're doing to really engage girls and women, but I think the conversation doesn't end here, If you guys have solutions, talk to different individuals in the room, continue to use Twitter, if you want to use hashtag She's4Sports, and let's talk about some solutions. Let's talk about other things that we could do, because I am a big believer that the change is possible, and as I said, I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but I do believe that it's possible. So thank you guys for all coming out tonight.